Welcome to another Atchman Kings of War 3rd Edition Battle Report. Ratkin versus the Goblin Orc Alliance. 2,000 points, and the scenario was Invade. I'm just going to full on admit that I have no clue what to do with Ratkin in this edition. The army has just changed so much from what I was used to in the previous edition. I'm not saying I was a good player, but at least I knew kind of what to do with the stuff I had. So this week, when Polly suggested a battle, I decided I would just borrow somebody's list. In this case, it's my friend Ben's list. And I just want to go through it with you real quick. It has a unit of shock troops, the Blade of Slashing and the Plague Pots, a shock troop horde with Plague Pots, a Tunnel Runner regiment with the Brew of Sharpness. That is one of my most favorite units. 5 warrior regiments, the Scud, a Mutant Rat Fiend, a Brood Mother, a War Chief on a Flea Bag, also one of my favorite units, and a Swarm Crier. The main difference between his list and my list is that I tend to play with more hordes, and in his place, his Mutant Rat Fiend kind of acts almost like a horde that's in there because of the attacks and how resilient it is. So I can see how it goes. It's also way more maneuverable than having another big old horde sitting across the table. And I like the list. This game, I still was trying to deal with how to play it, and probably wasn't that successful with it. But I do like the list. I just have to play it a few times to get used to it. So this is deployment. Polly and my friend Craig both do this at times, which is deploy strong on both flanks and relatively weak in the middle. Now, when I have shooting just like Polly did, that's exactly the way I deployed as well, because I want the shooting to have clear lanes of fire. And I mean, it's really a good plan, but I just decided to kind of follow what Ben has suggested to me and kind of set up together. I mean, I'm fast enough that I can split out from there and react to anything that I need to react to. So, didn't have any shooting hardly in my list. I think 1 lightning bolt. So shooting wasn't all that important to me, obviously. So I just needed to move, get into fights as quick as possible. Hopefully fights that are on my terms. And that was my goal in this game, was to fight on my terms. So I started at the bottom. I had the Scud. He's hiding behind a house because there's a lot of shooting over there. The Tunnel Runners also hiding behind the hill. The 5 regiments of warriors are screening my 2 hordes of shock troops. The ASB is behind the red shock troops. The Brood Mother is behind the Scud, using his height for protection. The Chieftain is next to one of the warrior units because I wanted to charge out as quick as I could and maybe try to get into the artillery on the other side of the table. For Polly, he had hordes of rabble on both sides because I figured he knew he could, since it's Invade, he could just push down both sides of the table and I'll have to do something about them. And wasting your time fighting rabble is not cool. Then he had the shooting guys on the hill. He had a general on, I can't forget what they're called, Mob East or whatever they are. Some more rabble. Then he had some more action units and Luggets. And more rabble, 3 artillery pieces, 2 big rock slobbers, and 1 mop-up launcher. And then a unit of Luggets, a unit of great axes. I guess on the right side, 2 more units of rabble. I'm sorry, not rubble. So anyway, he had several powerful melee units, way more than I did actually, as far as melee units, with the Luggets and the Morax and Orcs with great axe. And I just want to say that I actually like running Orcs and Goblins together. I think that I would like to run them more Orc strong than Goblin strong, but I guess if you want a lot of shooting, you run Goblin strong and use the Orcs for some melee combat power. I mean, you could also probably use troll hordes or something like that to almost do the same thing. What I miss in an army like this is the speed. Since it's all infantry, doesn't have that quick flank threat that a good Goblin army will with their fast cav and their chariots. Alright, this is Polly's first turn, and he managed to do some wounds to 2 of my warrior regiments, 6 on one and 2 on the other. Moved up kind of behind those difficult ground and behind the lake over there. I did suffer from shooting this entire game, and he doesn't have an immense amount of shooting, but he has the 2 big rock slobbers, 2 mop-ups, the grenades on his wing it, and then I think he also had lightning bolt 3 on one mage, and he had the boomstick on another mage. So it added up to a pretty darn decent shooting phase. So I had to deal with that the rest of the game. So this is my turn 1. I went ahead and moved the Scud around to take some pot shots at the wing it, and I was trying to set up for a good charge to get rid of those Morax, as they're such a huge threat to my army. The nice thing is that I had with the Radiance of Life, I got some wounds back on some of my units, so I got one back on the unit, on each unit there. So that was kind of some cure for the shooting phase. So I felt pretty good about that because it doesn't even have to make a dice roll, and which is a great thing for me. So my plan was to kind of push the left flank with the Scud and the tunnel runners, and like I say, I'm more weighted left, and I'm in an echelon formation. Really scary units over there on the right hand side, the Luggets and that big Orc Great Axe unit. I mean, they are just incarnate death. I really just almost had to ignore the 2 rabble hordes going down the flank. There was really nothing I could do about it. So I just concentrated on getting my guys across the line, and I had pretty decent unit strength, so felt pretty good about my chances. But like I said, I had to go through those Morax unit and that big unit of Great Axe and 2 units of Luggets. Pretty much every Goblin unit had the Maw Beast thing upgrade, so I was taking quite a bit of damage from Goblins, a lot more than I really expected to take. So good to go, Polly. So I forgot to take a picture during Polly's turn. I don't know why, but I did. So over on the right hand side, that big unit of Great Axe and the Luggets are now in the creek, and again you can see I'm kind of echeloned back trying to deal with them. His other rabble horde has already got to scoring position on that side of the table. The middle, I just kind of angled everything. Like I said, I was trying to echelon off and to not allow those units to hit me at the same time, if at all possible. I angled the Mutant Rat Fiend because I figured I could see a flank on one of those units here in a second, and with his height, I knew I could take advantage of that. His winged had flown behind my army and was spotting. I guess it may be on the same regiment he was spotting, but his shooting didn't do nearly as well this time. My Radiance of Life was doing a pretty good job of healing me back. Now, over on the left-hand side, I did charge my tunnel runners and the Scud into his Morax unit to destroy it. The thing was, in his turn, he rolled out his ass and put 12 wounds on the Scud. And the Scud, I mean, he's a pretty tough dude, but 12 wounds in one turn of shooting, I was miserable. So I knew I had to charge, probably one turn before I really wanted to charge. But I needed to also get rid of that Morax unit, even if I lose the guy. It just made sense at the time. I had snuck my chieftain up just to the edge of those woods on the first turn, and then on the second turn I charged through and went after one of his war machines. I was hindered, so I don't think I killed it in one go, but I did disrupt it so that it couldn't shoot. Eventually, I would actually kill all 3 war machines, and you'll see it the rest of the game. It's amazing the job the chieftain did. And he came just like a quarter of an inch short of killing the 4th war machine. So just an amazing job by the chieftain. I don't think I'll ever leave without him now. Normally I take something like an assassin with the wings, but the chieftain was just as good, I think, because he's a little bit tougher, had armor 5, hits real well. So I really like that addition. I mean, that's kudos to Ben. I mean, he always said he liked the chieftain, and now I really understand the reason why he likes him. So I managed to get a flank charge on the Great Axe from the Mutant Rat Fiend. I had taken a lot of damage from shooting 5 and got some of it back, but it wasn't good. I mean, it had done like 9, I think, and I barely survived. So I figured I better just jump into a fight somewhere rather than lose him. The shooting, like I said, it was doing great for him, and so I went ahead and charged into the flank of that unit, pretty much knowing if I didn't kill them or waver them, they were done. Down at the bottom, the warrior unit got wavered. It just took 3 wounds and kind of a lucky dice roll, and it really bogged up my shock troopers down there. In his turn, he had charged the rabble horde into my stranded tunnel runners, and my countercharge destroyed them with the unit in the flank, my warrior unit in the flank, and then of course the power of the shock troops themselves. And of course the Scud was destroyed. I forgot by shooting, or somebody charged into him, but I mean, to lose him that quick was just unfortunate. I mean, and it was I kind of thought I could survive. I just didn't realize I was going to take 14 or 15 wounds from shooting in 2 turns. That is a lot when you're armor 5. And so anyway, I've lost him now, and I'm really feeling despondent about the game. But it doesn't look as bad. If you kind of see how everything's laid out, it's not as bad as it could be. And the thing that happens in this game is that we end up stopping on the end of the next turn, so that because we both had things going on, which is the nice thing about playing online, is you could just stop a game and then continue. So this is where we started off on day 2 after the end of my turn. Down in the bottom right, of course, his horde is in the woods there and scoring. He lost his luggage to a combo charge by my warrior regiment and the shock troop regiment. Even though I was hindered, I did enough wounds to get rid of them. And the broodmother moved up there to drain life and get those guys up to 10 on the horde of great axe. My other little unit of warriors, he's kind of wiggling in there behind the woods, and my intention was to just turn into the woods and go, and since he's already a scoring unit, and take cover and just do the best I can. His artillery dumped on me again on my big red shock troop horde. He had 6 wounds on him. I don't think he dies the whole game, but I mean, I think he's pretty severely wounded. In the I had when I turned to charge into his unit of rabble there, and shooting and stuff in there over the time. I mean, I'm up to 1 jillion wounds, it seems like, for such a low morale unit. And then I charged the warrior regiment into his flank, and he was wavered. And this is kind of where we started the turn, because he could not, even though that my tunnel runners were very, very wounded, he couldn't get to them. There was no way he could get to him, because the unit in his flank, he could not disengage, so they were stuck in melee with me, which just protected me so well. His luggage went ahead and charged into my warrior regiment, and pretty much it for the end of his turn. And we'll just have to see what happens in my turn. So on the right hand side of the line, his great axe unit went ahead and destroyed my poor warrior unit. He only overran 1 inch though, and I had an opportunity to charge him in the flank on the next turn, but I think I elected just to go ahead and try to score, because if I could get going very fast the other way, there's no way he could catch up to me to prevent me, and I was just going to go ahead and concede the points for the victory points for those 2 units, just trying to get more victory points on his side of the table, because he had moved in. That's quite a bit of his combat power there over on that side of the on the side of the table. So that gives me an advantage, because most of my good combat stuff is actually over on the left flank. His shooting and stuff had got my shock troops up to 11 now. It's just beat to crap by them. But if you look up there in the top, you'll see that 5. That is my chieftain, and he's already killed two artillery pieces, gets charged in the rear, shrugs it off, and runs over and kills the last big rock slobber. That was just some amazing luck. He lived through the entire game. It was just, I couldn't have been happier with any model that was on the table than the chieftain. He just did a great job, and as did the tunnel runners. So on the right side, I just ignored the great axe unit, figuring if I get my 2 points across, it just negates his 2 points. So I managed to just push the shock troops across the middle line. That's where the yellow X is. And I also moved the broodmother into that spot as well. She had managed to suck another wound off of them, so now they're up to 11 on the great axe unit. My warrior regiment is now taking its place in the woods. He's facing toward his general. His Luggets in the prior turn had went ahead and killed went ahead and wavered my unit of warriors in the field there. I moved the shock troop horde up there as close as I could. Like I said, I've been getting beat up by shooting. The other regiment of warriors that has the 3 on the left-hand side here, and the tunnel runners, of course, go ahead and finish off that horde of rabble. So tunnel runners, they've done a pretty good job this whole game. But I mean, my strategy now is to try to get points. I started thinking about it at the end of 4, and I really wanted to get it at the end of 5. So it's coming down to the wire. As you can see, the red shock troops on the left are up to 19 wounds. And the only reason I'm here is because he managed to roll a very key Snake Eyes. And usually I gripe and bitch about Snake Eyes, but if it's mine, I'm happy for it. His little rabble regiment, he still had his mob pups, which is what got me. Did 1 wound to me on the flank charge and managed to waver me. So now I'm up to 9 wounds there. But the point is I'm still alive, and it's turn 6, and I'm all the way across the table. I think in my turn I did charge into his Luggets along with the general that I had, and I don't think I did anything to him, but it didn't really matter because the game was coming to an end and I was moving last. So over on the right hand side, he managed to do a wound to the brood mother. She of course radiates to life and got it back, and then charged and wavered the boomstick wizard, so he couldn't do anything in case there was a turn 7. So in the end, this kind of is how it really ended up, is that he had 9 points, 4 for each of those 2 hordes at the bottom, and 1 for his wing it. And I ended up with quite a few points. I mean, I had 2 hordes across, so that gives me the 8 I needed. The broodmother gave me 9. The regiment gave me 10, 11, and then the even though they're wavered, the tunnel runners gave me 13. So I won 13-9, and I really didn't expect it because his shooting was just getting me. But you know, I won this game by a dice roll, and I'll just tell you that. I still would have won like a little bit to a little bit, but that rolling that Snake Eyes was just grave for him. So looking on the looking back at the slide, of course I don't have a picture of it on my last turn. The regiment with the 3 on it had also moved across the table and into the scoring zone. So even if I would have lost that horde with the 19, I still would have won 11-9. Either way, I was good to go. But the fact that those guys, he rolled Snake Eyes, that was killer good for me. Like I said, I didn't need it to win, but it sure as hell made it a lot easier. So at the end of every game, I try to do my afterthoughts, which kind of corresponds to my after-action reviews we used to do when I was in the Army. And it's just to reflect back on what worked and what didn't during the game. Pretty much everything in the list I had worked. I didn't use it correctly sometimes, but everything did work. It did exactly what it's supposed to do. Even the little chaff regiments get up there and score points. I mean, 4 points, 2 chaff regiments just across the table. So that was big. The shock troops, both units survived. That was excellent. I didn't really expect the Scud to die so quickly. I knew I could take 1 round of shooting very easily, but I did not count on multiple hits from big rock lobbers and taking 12 wounds. I think he died when he was up to 15 or 16. It was absurd. Tunnel runners with Brew of Sharpness, that is truly a don't leave home without it unit for the Ratkin now. Like I said, I'm used to playing with 3 hordes, so if you kind of think about it, you kind of think of them as a sort of horde, and then the Mutant Rat Fiend as a sort of horde. It kind of works out the same. The Army does get to set up a little tighter because of that, instead of spread all over creation like my Army is. The Mutant Rat Fiend, I just didn't use it right way. I mean, he was just, because his armor's so low, he was getting punished by shooting. And speaking of that, I really don't use the brood mother correctly either. I know she's supposed to be sucking wounds off those warrior regiments and putting wounds back to save people, but I was taking so much damage so fast. I just don't know if it would have helped all that much, if even if I used her correctly. So, I mean, the idea of that stuff is pretty cool. But if you're getting just punished uh, by ranged damage, it's hard to just think about pausing long enough to stop and heal or to weaken the units in front. Because in this case, I actually needed the units in front to stay alive as a meat shield. And like I said, the big thing was that those units actually scored for me. At least two of those three, maybe three of them scored for me. So that's significant. And I'm afraid if I would have just been sucking wounds off of them, they would have got so weak that they would have died way sooner than they needed to be. So going to have to rethink the brood mother thing. I did like the Radiance of Life. That helped. But my mistake was not keeping the brood mother and the MRF close enough together to keep pulling wounds back to each other. And that was just my bad. I never played the list before. And hopefully next time I won't choke so bad with it. So, like I said, I like the list. I liked Polly's list. I just hate to have to face the nastiest of the Orc army in with a bunch of goblins shooting, but I guess that's the way it goes. The his shooting, as usual, just eviscerates. And I don't know. It's nothing he's doing. It's just the dice. Sometimes it's just, the shooting army lives and dies by shooting phases. And there was a couple of turns he did nothing, but then he would come back the next turn and just dump on me. And I mean, it was just luckily that I weathered all of that shooting. And his army, I don't even think is excessive shooting. He just rolled well, and it's just hard to deal with. I mean, the regular goblin armies that don't have the orcs and the morax and stuff in them, fighting wise, aren't that hard to deal with. I mean, even if they have trolls to me are kind of vulnerable to charging hordes where they're hitting on fours, and it's just not reliable amount of damage. Those great axe, that is a pure damage outputting machine, with all those crushing two swings and the hitting on threes. I mean, that is an amazing unit. His Morax didn't get into the game, but I know for a fact that they are also an amazing units. The Legates did an excellent job in this game. To me, they were just almost like fighting two more Orc units. So I really like the army. I like the concept. It's similar to what I run as far as shooting and stuff. He has more shooting than I normally do. But what I like to do with them is I like a fast flank with the king on the chariot, a couple of units of flea bags, and throwing the winged over there as well. In bigger games, I have even more fast stuff on one flank. Because just think about this game. If he would have had the Fleabag Riders, he would have been all the way across the table and in my flank on turn 2. And with the way my army was set up, there wasn't much I could do about it except bend toward him. And the fact that he had those great axe and Legates there walking across the table was actually a benefit to me because they're not that fast. So I think his army lacks a little bit of speed, and if I was going to change something, it would be that. I would probably just use Fleabag units instead of those rabble hordes. But I mean, I don't know what his unlocks and stuff look like either. But I would definitely dump some stuff to get a little bit of speed, even if it's just a couple of troops. It just makes so much difference. And you think about it late in a game like that, even if you knew that the other guy was shooting, you could still, you could be way the heck back and charge your flea bags across the table on the last turn just to score in a scenario like Invade. So I do like that army though. It's tough. I mean, it is a tough army to fight against. Very well balanced. So that's my thoughts for the game. Afterthoughts for the game. It was a great game. I really thought I was going to lose most of